When terminating your manual counterweight line sets, we do usually end up terminating on this eye bolt or whatever attachment point is on top and bottom with 2 half hitches. We tidy it up with tape or zip ties or heat shrink or one of those other things. I posted something 6-8 months ago asking for people's opinions about what they do. So many people use gaffer's tape, so many people use electrical tape, lots of people use zip ties, some people use heat shrink. All of those tape solutions I find to just be unattractive and just aesthetically displeasing. Of course, the most aesthetically pleasing option is probably going to be whipping your tail of your end of your rope and whipping these 2 lines together. Most of us don't do that as a routine thing, so we don't have it in our regular skill set, although most of us can learn it. It's just a simple knot tying technique. But it also takes time. The tape is obviously much more efficient. Both times, several people have suggested, well, why don't you just do an eye splice? The eye splice isn't going to work in this application because this rope needs to be pulling in both directions. We could theoretically tie an eye splice at the top and then tie a knot or a hitch on the bottom to bring it into tension. But if I were trying to do an eye splice in both locations, it's going to be real hard to get that eye splice precise and in tension and within the range of the tension block down here. The tension block has some range of position that it could be in to put this rope into tension. And if this rope isn't in tension, then the line set isn't going to move. It's going to slip. It's going to do all kinds of weird things. So an eye splice is really not a good choice for this termination application. The eye splice is used for slings, things that will go around things. You'll make a basket and you'll hang your scenery from your top steel. You can do eye splices with those. If you're doing lifting of things with cranes, an eye splice sling to gather around that is a good choice. But if you are doing something that needs to be in tension, you have to have at least one end that has some quick and easy adjustability. And that eye splice is not your choice. Also, when you are replacing these ropes, you are more than likely going to put a new rope on. It's going to need some time to stretch out and to get adjusted. And you're more than likely going to have to come back and retie one or both of your knots within 6 months to a year. Don't expect it to get perfectly tied and perfectly tensioned on a new replacement and then never have to adjust it again. The nice thing about a hitch is that it's real easy to retie and tighten up. The reason we don't want to tie a bowline in this situation is for the same reason, because the bowline is not going to be an easy knot to cinch up to this eye bolt. There is virtually no difference between the bowline and the 2 half hitches as a tie-off point in terms of reducing your safe working load of your rope. But again, the bowline, like the eye splice, is not the appropriate knot to use in this situation to make it easily adjustable and easy to bring into tension. Yes, we know that eye splices will do the least to reduce your safe working load, but it's not the appropriate application here, so there's no point in mentioning it, right? Don't mention something that's not appropriate for the application or the task. We're talking about this very specific application here. What is the load that's being carried by this tape? 0. Nothing. The tape is dressing. It's beautification. It's keeping that tail from slipping out and untying the knot, and it's keeping that tail from interfering with the tension block. So if I replace this piece of tape with one of my Ropeze connectors, which are rated at 190 pounds safe working load, again, that's not breaking strength, that's the manufacturer's safe working load. I assume that is at least 5-to-1 design factor, possibly more than that. I'd have to look up the manufacturer and see what it is. In its normal application, it's got that load capacity, but that's because the Ropeze is intended to make an eye splice. A quicker way of making an eye splice than having to actually unwind your rope and tie an eye splice. It's not a very high strength eye splice compared to the 10,000 pounds of this rope if we were to do a real eye splice into it. If I replace this tape with a Ropeze clamp, I'm not expecting that Ropeze clamp to do any load bearing situation whatsoever. It's just there for beautification. And I've also modified these Ropeze clamps to take those spikes out, so I've effectively eliminated the Ropeze clamp as having any safe working load, because those spikes do not want to bite into this rope that has the solid or dense core inside of it. The Ropeze clamps are meant for a much softer rope, much more pliable rope. So the Ropeze clamps are going to have 0 impact on any of this situation. It's the knot that's carrying the load, and the knot top and bottom. So that's all I need to worry about. The load factor of the Ropeze clamp, irrelevant. Some of these line sets, folks have decided to tie 3 half-hitches. That's a little bit excessive. The third half-hitch doesn't do anything except it helps deal with the loose end of the tail, which why don't you just cut off the loose end of the tail. If we look up 2 half-hitches, they are also sometimes called a full hitch, and it's also sometimes called a clove hitch variation. Now, looking at it, it doesn't exactly look like a clove hitch. I think there's a way to tie 2 half-hitches where it actually is closer to a clove hitch. Yeah, this is one. So here's my 2 half-hitches here. This one, it does not look like a clove hitch. It's wrapped around this way, and then it comes around that way, and both of these lines are coming in parallel, as opposed to this one that comes up and over and around, comes down and around and back through. We've got the 2 ropes coming in opposite directions, and that looks a lot more like a clove hitch. So I think there is a way to tie 2 half-hitches where it actually is the clove hitch variation, and there's a way to tie 2 half-hitches where it is not a clove hitch variation. But I'm not an expert on that detail of knots, so if someone has additional information and additional knot expertise, please share with us. If there's no difference between the 2 variations, I'd love to know. As we can see here, this Ropeze clamp is carrying 0 load. It's also one that I've modified. It doesn't have those spikes anymore. And it's the 2 half-hitches here that are carrying the load. And I have tied my 2 half-hitches where it comes in one way, comes around, and comes out the other way. So the 2 lines are coming opposite. So this is actually that clove hitch variation of the 2 half-hitches. The Ropeze clamp is there in replacement of the tape. The tape carries no load. The Ropeze clamp carries no load. If we look inside these, there's little spikes inside, and that is what's biting into the rope. And again, it's just too dense for those spikes to actually dig into this rope properly and provide the clamping tension that this is intended to do on softer ropes. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time with more technical theater content.